Welcome to the Hollywood Raw podcast. It is Friday, which means it is Raw Rundown time. I am Dax Holt. Adam is out today. He is traveling around all over Los Angeles, hanging out with some celebs. So I'm sure soon enough we will get to hear about his adventures in Los Angeles. Anyway, so rolling solo today. I do want to give you a heads up. Next week, because it is Thanksgiving week, there will be no Raw Rundown on Friday. I am so sorry, but there is so much going on. Adam and I traveling, all that kind of stuff. So just a heads up now, no Raw Rundown next Friday. I hope you guys enjoy your Thanksgivings, time with your family, all that goodness. Anyway, so like I said, it is Raw Rundown Day. That means we jump into the biggest stories of the week, get you caught up on everything in entertainment news. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to jump right into this, read you one review real fast. All right, this review comes from McGill522. It's a 5-star. It says, love, absolutely love you guys. You always have the best stories and guests. Keep up the good work. That comes from Molly. Thank you, Molly, for your little shout out. By the way, I've got another one here. It is a 1-star review. I'm guessing they meant for it to be a 5-star because it says it's a good pod. Really enjoy. Thanks, guys. Great job from Luca Banana. So, Luca, if you're out there and you're listening to the podcast, come on, dude, change it back to a 5-star or change it to a 5-star. We always say we won't read 1-star, but I felt like it was a good comment and maybe you made a mistake on the star. So go back in, check out your review. If you don't mind, change it so you don't kill our algorithm. All right. Anyway, let's jump in. We don't have a lot of time because I got to go. So number 10. All right. Diddy. There is a new sexual assault lawsuit against him by a 39-year-old man that is being dismissed, which is kind of shocking because I feel like all we're ever talking about is all the lawsuits being filed against him. This one is actually being dismissed. This was filed in New York. So there's an anonymous plaintiff who now lives in Georgia, said he attended a party with friends and consumed alcohol that had been provided to him by other individuals at the party. After consuming the drink, the plaintiff began to feel disoriented, and this is all in the lawsuit, and began to lose control of their body and lose consciousness. The lawsuit went on to say that, this kind of mirrors the same pattern of events that other accusers have represented in other lawsuits. Well, according to the man, he then regained consciousness. He was in a dark bedroom with black walls, on a bed with black sheets. Everything around him was dark. The plaintiff, I guess, was horrified to find Combs on top of him, sodomizing him. So on Wednesday, the judge said the plaintiff filed to get the court's permission to file anonymously as John Doe. She dismissed the case because, quote unquote, such a proceeding must be commenced as a miscellaneous case and leave from the court to proceed using a pseudonym. So that one may just get pushed off. They may have to refile, but as of now, it was dismissed. And I mean, this just goes on and on and on with the numerous lawsuits that have been filed against Diddy. I can tell you that in a statement to ABC, Combs' attorney addressed the whole filing against saying the extortion against Busby. By the way, Busby, that lawyer in Texas who has been basically representing most of these people, there has been a lawsuit filed against him saying that he is trying to extort money out of celebs. And I can tell you, so this is what Combs' attorney is talking about. The extortion lawsuit against Mr. Busby exposes his barrage of lawsuits against Mr. Combs for what they are: shameless publicity stunts designed to distract payments from celebrities who fear having lies spread about them, just as lies have been spread about Mr. Combs. And then they did make a comment about this latest sexual assault filing. They said Mr. Combs has full confidence in the facts and the integrity of the judicial system or process. In court, the truth will prevail that Mr. Combs never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. I wonder if they're just like copy paste at this point. Really, you are. It's another lawsuit, another day, another agency is calling or publications calling to say, hey, what is your comment on this? At a point, you're probably just like, all right, just give them the generic statement we've given 7 other times to all the other lawsuits that have been filed out there. So anyway, more drama, more Diddy news. Let's move on. All right, number 9. Did I say number 9 for the last one? That was 10. Number 9, Nicole Kidman. Do you remember that super famous photo of her where she's in this like pink top and she comes out and she looks so happy and excited? And a lot of people thought that that was a photo taken when her divorce was finalized with Tom Cruise years ago. Like, she looks free. And while she finally has now debunked that whole speculation, that photo of her is not actually from when she divorced Tom Cruise. So she did an interview with British GQ magazine. It was published on Monday. And she said, look, and they asked her, do you remember the image of you standing in the sun with a pink top on? Your eyes were closed, your arms were out, you're wearing this expression of celebration and relief. She goes, yes, that was not me. That was from a film. That wasn't real. I know that she goes, I know that image. But there was all these stories and rumors going around that it was right when she left her lawyer's office finalizing the divorce. You remember they were married from like 1990, and then they were married for 11 years. She goes, look, it's not true. She said, I remember the story behind it. She goes, there was also this one. So I guess she remembers like when she filmed that. But then she said there's another one where she's clapping. And if you know this photo or this meme, and it's her clapping with her fingers like not touching. So like they're like bent back, if you can kind of picture that. That's also become like a funny like meme over the years. She says, I remember that one where I'm clapping. She goes, I had on these massive, heavy borrowed rings, and it was really painful. And she said, I was scared of wrecking the jewelry. So she ended up like bending her fingers backwards. So when she clapped, her fingers wouldn't touch. And she goes, look, there's always a story behind the actual images out there. Don't believe everything that you see or read, and she's obviously promoting her new movie, Baby Girl, which is about her being an exec. If you haven't seen the previews, go check out the previews. She's like an executive or CEO, something like that. And she is seduced by a young male intern, and it turns into this like heavy sexual relationship where he is the dominator, like all kinds of stuff. It looks pretty interesting. It's getting a lot of buzz, obviously, because of who she is and playing this role where she's an older woman seducing this young man, or he's seducing her. Anyway, she's like naked in the whole thing, and she talked about going naked is kind of difficult at this point in her life, but it's freeing. And if you remember, we brought up this movie because she had said like I couldn't do any more orgasms. There were so many orgasms in the movie that I had a point I had to step out of it. Anyway, that is number 9. All right, number 8. Jay Leno injured once again. I mean, this is honestly unbelievable. The guy has gotten into so many injuries, accidents. If you remember, he was burnt by the fire in his garage a couple of years back. He had like some really nasty 3rd-degree burns. Then he had a motorcycle accident. Well, now J-Lo. Not J-Lo, guys, not J-Lo. Jay Leno fell down a 60-foot hill the other day, injured himself, basically broke his wrist, and he ended up shrugging it off. So here's what happened. He said that he was staying at this hotel, and basically that he was trying to get back to his car, but there was like a long walk, and he goes, oh, you know what, I could just cut down the hill. He goes, it didn't look that steep. Well, apparently it was pretty steep, and he ended up like rolling down the 60-foot hill and injured himself pretty bad. Like I said, he broke his wrist in the fall. He was seen wearing a cast on his arm, and he was sporting an eye patch as well. And the left of his face was pretty visibly bruised. Well, he did an interview with Inside Edition and TMZ, kind of told him all about the thing. But yeah, don't take the shortcut. That is one thing, and he just seems very accident prone. Every couple months, we're hearing some wild story about Jay Leno. But here's the thing. After that, a couple hours later, he went and still did the stand-up show in Pittsburgh. So he got up on stage, and then he came back to LA, got himself treated, and then the following Monday, which was like 2 days later, ended up going to another stand-up show. So clearly, I think he's just like shrugging off. He's like, look, I'm an old man. I'm falling down and getting injured, but I'm still going through with my shows. because honestly, these injuries are nothing compared to the burns and that motorcycle accident that he had back in like 2022, 2023 time. So anyway, he's all good. He's living to tell about it. All right. Number 7, Denzel Washington. He says that he did a lot of damage to his body by drinking 2 bottles of wine a day. I did not realize how much he struggled with sobriety over the years. He said this was 15 years that he was basically just drinking himself into a fury. And he was doing this new interview with Esquire, and it's all surrounding Gladiator 2. This new movie that's coming out. It's getting a lot of press. Well, anyway, he's 69 years old now, and he's open up about his past alcohol abuse and saying that, it literally started when he was super young, just like drinking with a buddy, and then it kind of spiraled. He said that he had this house. He built this big house in like 1999. It had a 10,000 bottle wine cellar. And he goes, I've just learned to drink and to drink the best. And so he goes, I'd start drinking the wines that were from like the 60s and then the 80s. He said, just whatever we had, wine was my thing. And then he goes, then I started popping $4,000 bottles just because that's what we had left. He said later in those years, he would call down to like the Gills Turner Fine Wines and Spirits on Sunset Boulevard and say, just send me 2 bottles, the best of whatever you have. And he remembers his wife at the time being like, why do you keep just ordering 2? I don't understand. He goes, because if I have more, I'll drink more. So I kept 2 bottles and I would drink them over the course of a day. He said, look, I've never drank when I was working or prepping for a film. I would stop for that and then immediately go back to it after the project wrapped. But he's realized like it really messed with his system. He goes, I was never strung out on heroin. I didn't do coke, never strung out on hard drugs. He goes, I shot dope like that like they shot dope, but I never got strung out. I never got strung out on liquor. I guess his body just became like super immune to it. But he says that, it really took a turn on him. And now he's been sober for, I want to say 12 years, I believe, if I remember correctly. He's been sober for 12 years. He feels great. Actually, Lenny Kravitz hooked him up with his trainer. And so now it's all about health, fitness. He said this trainer will actually make him and prep him food and his meals. And he's like, now I feel like I am in a great part of my life. But he's like, I think he kind of regrets having deteriorated his body so quickly by drinking so much every day. That is really, really tough on your body. So anyway, listen, you start getting all these stories when anyone's coming out with a movie or need to publicize a movie. Somehow all of their skeletons in the closet start coming up. And this is really the best way to promote a movie is you get these types of stories and someone says, Denzel Washington, Gladiator 2 star, reveals he was drinking 2 bottles a day. It works for press. This is why they save all their best stories for when they need to promote something. All right, moving on. Number 6. This is a wild story. So we told you, I want to say on Wednesday, that Adam had got an exclusive interview with Brianna Chicken Fry when she was leaving the UFC event. Well, if you remember, it was pretty publicized that she was going to be going to that UFC event and kind of everyone knew. Well, if you remember that night, or if you did not watch, let me fill you on what happened. There was a UFC fighter who basically gave a shout out to Zach Bryan right after he won his fight. The fighter's name is David Anama, and he won his fight. And then Joe Rogan is talking to him up there. And he's, congratulating him. And the guy's like, yeah, I just can't wait to be back here in a month for the Zach Bryan concert. And everyone's like, well, that was really out of left field. What the hell? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, come to find out, and Dave Portnoy has now jumped into this, come to find out that UFC fighter, he did an interview on SiriusXM Fight Nation, which is a podcast. And they asked him, look, what the hell are you like a big Zach Bryan fan? Like, just seemed very random for you to shout out Zach Bryan after winning a massive fight. He goes, oh no. So his management reached out to my management and he really wanted a shout out, said that he was, that he was a big fan. And so I gave him a shout out. Well, Dave Portnoy is now pissed, saying that the only reason that Zach Bryan's management went through this was they knew Brianna was in the audience that night. They were trying to embarrass her, that this fighter has no idea who the hell Zach Bryan is, and they just did it to basically fuck with Brianna, which is pretty crazy if that is in fact the case, that they literally were trolling her on such a public forum. But now, this UFC fighter has been kind of dragged into this Zach Bryan, Brianna chicken fry mess, and literally had no idea who Zach Bryan was. Pretty wild, right? So that story seems to be continuously be getting crazier and crazier with them, giving public disses. I wouldn't want to be on the other end of a Dave Portnoy pissed offness. Yes, you're getting a ton of press, but the guy doesn't hold back. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to continuously rant and rave about you. Not something that I would want to be on the other side of personally. And Zach Bryan, he's a big star, and Dave Portnoy gives him a lot of props for his music, but just keeps talking about what a little pathetic man he is for all the shit that he has put Brianna through, the way he treated her, the way he continues to treat her. So I'm curious to see if Zach Bryan's people end up commenting on this. At the time that I'm reporting, they have not commented on it, and I'm assuming they will not, because it just makes them honestly kind of look bad, like they went out of their way just to embarrass her, which is pretty insane. All right, let me go. Actually, this is going to be story 5.5. But CMAs were last night, or I guess 2 nights ago now, because I'm filming this on Thursday, but we're airing it on Friday. So the CMAs went down. One of the most talked about moments of the night was that Carrie Underwood did a surprise performance. They did not expect her to be there. She was not nominated for any awards, which is like the first time in her life she hasn't been nominated for a CMA. And she was not listed as a performer. Well, Cody Johnson was out performing, and then she comes out on stage to join him in a duet, and it got internet buzzing. People loved it. They said it was the highlight of the night. She looked unbelievable. She came out in this like white, long, flowy dress. But when Carrie Underwood does a surprise appearance, the world loses their mind. I can tell you that the awards show kind of went off without a hitch. Morgan Wallen ended up getting Entertainment of the Year. Chris Stapleton took Song of the Year for White Horse, and that Chris also snagged Male Vocalist of the Year. Lainey Wilson took home the award for Female Vocalist of the Year. So I don't know. For some reason, I feel like the CMAs got a lot more attention this year, and I don't know if there was more buzz because of the whole Beyonce snub earlier. I did watch the Shabuzi performance, which was, I love Shabuzi. God, I love that song. It's so good. It is so good. But he did a good job. So, and I'm not even like really a country fan per se. So the CMAs are not a show that I go to turn on, but there has been some really good country songs that have come out in the last year that have kind of crossed over to either pop or whatever, and like good shit. Makes me want to listen to more country. I've just never really gotten into it. All right, let's go to actual number 5. Pete Davidson stepping out for a date night with his mom at the Brooklyn Nets game. And this is after all of the rumors have surfaced about him going to rehab. There are multiple stories saying that him and Maria Gorgas, that Bachelor alum, had broken up, and then he went to rehab. Well, he showed up to the Brooklyn Nets game on Tuesday, and, he watched the Nets beat the Charlotte Hornets, but he was joined by his mother, and they were posing for photos. I can tell you one thing. The guy clearly wanted to be seen. We haven't seen Pete Davidson in a very long time. He has been very private. I do find it very interesting that these rumors come out, and he's like, let me go show my face at a Nets game because I need to make sure that everyone knows that I'm not in rehab. I'm hearing very different stories. I'm hearing that that he wasn't happy about these stories coming out and purposely left somewhere that he was staying to make sure that he was seen out. And that if you saw Maria Gorgas, I think is how you say her last name, she also posted on her IG basically saying that she is not dating Pete Davidson and she's friends with his sister. End of story. Notice that she didn't say, I never dated Pete Davidson. It seems like this is one of those weird situations where there's a good chance the stories were true and that they are doing some major damage control to basically cover them up and change the narrative very, very quickly. I don't know why, though, because I feel like Pete has been very honest and open about his struggles with mental health and addiction and all these kinds of things. And unless... I don't look at rehab as a bad thing. You're trying to help yourself. You're trying to better yourself. But whatever the situation is, I hope that all is good. I just think that he's probably tired of his business being out there because he is notoriously very, very private. So, all right, let's move on to number 4. Cher's memoir is getting a lot of attention. She is exposing all kinds of details about her life, her divorce from Sonny Bono, talking about her friendships with Tina Turner and Lucille Ball, and kind of just putting it all out there. But really how Sonny kind of screwed her over when it comes to business. So, they met when she was 16, he was 27. They moved on to get married later. They had a very successful show back in the 60s. They had some popular songs together, obviously, with the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. But she did say, look, there was a certain point where she said that Sonny began to change, that he just started to really not care about her, is kind of how she explained it. And she said that, and this is all from her book, she said that she wanted to sleep with the guitarist. And she said, it all seems crazy now. I didn't mean it, but I thought that telling him that she wanted to sleep with the guitarist was the only way that she was going to be able to kind of like end the marriage and he would let her go. And she goes, like, looking back, I didn't realize that I wanted to be out of the marriage. I said stuff just to like get a reaction or to blow up the marriage, but not realizing that's what I was trying to do. And she said that she was offered whatever she wanted to stay with Bono. And she said, I just want my own place in Malibu and $5,000 per month. And that 2 years later, she found out some pretty shocking news. So Cher says that she was then with her boyfriend. She was then with her music exec boyfriend, David Geffen, who got a hold of her contract. And come to find out that Sonny owned 95% of the company and that his lawyer owned the other 5. And it was called Cher Enterprises. And she owned nothing of it. And she said, we had worked together for almost 12 years. She confronted Bono, and I guess he said, I always knew you'd leave me. She goes, well, that's not a reason. How could you do that? How could we work all those days, those nights, those through the good, through the bad? And he didn't have an answer, but we were still friends after that. That is wild that Cher did not own a single % of the company that was about her and had her name and had all of her work with it. That's pretty unbelievable. But that wasn't the only story that is coming out from this memoir. By the way, I don't think I even said the name of the memoir. The memoir is called Cher, the Memoir Part 1. So we'll expect a Part 2. And the Part 1 is all about like her younger years and growing up and then marrying Sonny and her rise to superstardom. But I guess Tina Turner had also reached out to her on advice how to escape her abusive marriage, because she was obviously with Ike Turner at the time. And so she said, look, there was a time where the Turners had appeared on her TV show. This is the one that she launched after breaking up with Sonny. And she said that they were backstage in April 1975. And Tina straight up asked her, tell me how you left him. And she said they were in the dressing room at the time. And this is all came about because Tina was trying to cover up a bruise on her arm with makeup. And she said, I looked at her, I told her, just walk out and keep going. And then she goes, look, she remembers also, and this is Cher, reaching out to Lucille Ball for advice on leaving Sonny, citing that, Lucille was someone who had been through a very public breakup with Desi Arnaz, and so she called her for advice, and now she has another very famous person asking her. And then I guess it took like another year for Tina to actually file for divorce in 1976. And then she opened up about that in her book about her truly, truly very abusive relationship with Ike Turner. But I can tell you the Cher thing, I'm actually pretty interested about her book. I feel like she is one person that has lived a hell of a life, has so many stories to tell. I mean, the names that she is dropping in this memoir, or at least the little bits and pieces, I mean, she has been in contact with everyone. Think about that. Tina Turner and Lucille Ball and all the Sunny stories. I really feel like this could be a fascinating read about an icon's life. So I don't know, could be pretty interesting, and just everything that she's done and accomplished. Okay, number 3, let's talk Coachella and the 2025 lineup. It got announced, which it's announced 2 months earlier than it ever really has been in the past. But we're looking for headliners like Lady Gaga, Green Day, Post Malone, Travis Scott. All of them will be headed to the Coachella Valley for the big music festival that obviously takes over every year, and we get to hear about it. But I think Lady Gaga is a phenomenal choice to headline the show. She has been everywhere, doing everything, but dipping back into music, I think, is going to be pretty unbelievable. FKA Twigs will be there. I guess Prodigy is going to be making an appearance. 3 6 Mafia, I Dress. I mean, there's a lot of people. Charlie XCX, Japanese Breakfast, Megan Thee Stallion. This is going to be a phenomenal lineup, and I could see a lot of people buying some tickets to get to this, even though I think you got to kind of buy them a year in advance. Anyway, so that is kind of what everyone's talking about. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about it over the next couple months, and seeing who else is going to be joining on. Jimmy East World, I guess, is promising a high energy set. So that'll be interesting. I mean, that's more just of a quick topic. Everyone loves Coachella, trying to find out who's coming out, who's going to be appearing. So not really much more to say about that one. All right, we got to do a quick little update here. There is one more story that has just broken, and that is that Jussie Smollett has now had his conviction overturned by the Illinois Supreme Court. This is a big deal. It's not exactly what it sounds, though. This doesn't mean he's innocent, just means that his conviction has been overturned. So here's the deal. He was obviously the actor that was convicted in that whole hate crime hoax case, and got a lot of shit dumped on him. Well, an Illinois high court ruled on Thursday that Jussie's deal with the Cook County prosecutors, when they initially dropped the case against him, had to be honored. So we're going to go way back in time when that state's attorney, Kim Fox, struck a deal with the actor requiring him to forfeit his $10,000 bond and do 15 hours of volunteer community service. Well, they're saying that because that plea deal was made, he should not have had to go back and gone through the whole court proceedings, been found guilty. And when he was found guilty of disorderly conduct and sent to jail. And if you remember, he had 30 months of probation, 150 days had to be served behind bars. It was like a whole really big thing where he had the court case where they're saying that court case should have never gone down, because once he made the plea deal with the state attorney, that should have ended it. And that kind of thing sends a signal to a lot of state attorneys out there, like, don't make deals unless you are prepared to really stand by them. And if you remember at the time, Kim Fox, that state attorney, she had some relation or knew or had some friendship with Jussie Smollett's family. That is why everyone freaked out. They're like, wait, you just made a plea deal with him because you know his family. So we want this to go to trial. It went to trial, and they're saying, nope, it never should have gone there. So again, I say this as it does not absolve him of any innocence. It just means there's no double jeopardy here, is what it comes down to. So probably a huge win for him, but a lot of people that were affected by this hate crime hoax are really upset, saying, how is this guy getting away with it? And it comes down to, this was kind of a faulty judgment in the law, and I guess Kim Fox really should have never made that deal in the first place, because everyone else convicted him, found him guilty. There was even the brothers who came forward saying that they knew him, that he convinced them to play along in this hoax. He falsified a police report, the whole thing. It is so wild, but big win for Jussie Smollett, even though I got to imagine if it was him, I would not want any more attention on me. And you know what? This is honestly very similar of the whole Bill Cosby case, where there was like a reversal of a conviction. If you remember, he was doing time in prison in Pennsylvania when a Pennsylvania Supreme Court reversed his conviction, citing that the deal prosecutors had struck did not wait. Sorry. Let me try to say that again. Citing that the deal the prosecutors had struck was to not prosecute him in exchange for him sitting in a deposition. He sat for the deposition and then still was convicted, and so that was why that one got reversed as well. So anyway, crazy story, but let's get back to it. Number 2, which is Artem and Nikki. They have now settled their divorce. This was a pretty nasty divorce with a lot of allegations and an arrest and restraining orders against each other. Well, it's now settled. They just want to move on with their lives. They're ready to start a new chapter. And so they've settled this divorce. So according to legal documents that were obtained by TMZ, Artem and Nikki went to mediation earlier in the month and hammered out a divorce settlement. The sources are telling TMZ that Artem and Nikki decided to quickly settle their divorce because they both want to just move the fuck on, in part because it was getting very expensive to pay lawyers. Plus, the whole process was just becoming very emotionally draining, which I can imagine. I think a divorce in normal circumstances is probably extremely draining, but the second that it is now on a public stage and everyone's talking about it and everyone knows your business and your shit, like, no, thank you. So I can imagine it being even twice as draining as anyone else's divorce. Anyway, so they're not exactly getting along these days is what it sounds like, but they're cooperating with each other and their relationship is, quote unquote, very much a work in progress. So one of the reps told TMZ, Nikki's rep, said, Nikki's number one priority has always been her son and privacy on the matter. She's thankful for all the love and support she's receiving during this difficult time. In terms of a settlement, I guess that is unclear. I know that it was reported that a judge had already ordered Artem and Nikki to share custody of their 4-year-old son, Mateo, but Artem was seeking spousal support from Nikki, but I remember she put in her divorce filings that she checked the box to say block the ability to award spousal support. So not sure how that is playing out. I think we're going to have to wait for the documents to fully go out through the system. But the divorce filings, they came in the wake of the domestic violence arrest back in August, even though he was not actually criminally charged for anything after they looked into the evidence. And then remember, they got the restraining orders, like I said, but the docs show they have now agreed to dismiss those restraining orders. So, I mean, all positive steps to moving forward for the sake of their son. So I guess that's good. And I guess we'll see what happens. I remember Artem was talking about hopefully wanting to get back on Dancing with the Stars. He did make like an appearance, but it was just like backstage, not on the show. So we'll see if Dancing with the Stars ends up giving him a second chance at some point, which I know he really wants because he feels like that arrest, even though he was not charged for anything and the cops didn't do anything, he did not get back on the show, and so he lost a lot of money not being allowed back on that. So he's hoping he can get back his spot on the dance floor. All right, let's move on to the top story, the number one story of the week, which is Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi moving to England, all in the wake of Trump winning, and they are saying they are fleeing the country. But we're going to get into whether or not that is actually true. So Ellen, I guess, is making a quick exit from the United States. It sounds like that her and her wife are now taking up roots in the UK. They have no plans to return to the US, is exactly what the story is saying. So here's the thing. they have now purchased a home in this like super fancy area. It's called World, I think is how you say it, Cotswolds. It is a rural portion of England. It's about 100 miles from London. It's super popular. A lot of celebrities live there. I mean, they're going to have neighbors like David and Victoria Beckham, Kate Moss, Patrick Stewart, Elizabeth Hurley, Jeremy Clarkson. I think there were some stories that maybe Kate Winslet still has a mansion there. Hugh Grant may also still live there. Super, super fancy place. It's basically, the Montecito of the UK. And it's apparently they are going to be listing their Bali-inspired mansion in Montecito, so they don't have plans to live here anymore. This was, if you remember, she had kind of said, if Trump wins, I am out of here. And so it seems like they are going to follow through with that. The thing is, the questionable part is, are they just using this as a marketing ploy? Because according to there was a story that came out that she had started the purchase of this house before Trump or before the election. So she wouldn't have known whether or not he was actually being elected. So she may just be using this as a good publicity move to say, I'm out of this country because Trump's going to office. I don't know. I know that she was a huge Harrison donor. She was very much a supporter of the Harrison campaign. So I know she is pretty bummed with the results of the election. But who really leaves a country if you don't like the president? That to me seems crazy. You love your country more than you love someone that even if they are running the country, it just seems kind of wild to me. I would not leave the country. I love the U.S. way too much to leave it, no matter who's in charge. That to me is kind of a wild statement. But anyway, so we'll see what happens here. If you guys go Google the photos of her Montecito house, the ones that is the like Bali-inspired mansion, it is so unbelievably beautiful. I got to tell you one thing about Ellen. The woman knows how to build homes, to flip homes, to do all that. She has, I don't know if she's got a team or if like this is her style. She knows how to do it right. She makes the most beautiful homes all over the place. She has flipped numerous homes through Beverly Hills, the Hollywood Hills. Really gorgeous, gorgeous homes. So, but check this one out. It literally looks like it is straight out of Bali. It's got this incredible infinity pool that is all lit up. And it kind of like is one of those ones where if you're not splashing around, it looks like just pure glass because it has the infinity edge where the water just rolls off. It's so gorgeous. I wish I was that rich to afford a house like that. God damn. All right. Anyway, so that is our top 10 stories of the week. Sorry, it was a bit of a quicker one. I got to jump. I got to do a live shot right now with the Jason Show in Minneapolis and to talk all about our podcast. So that is why I'm kind of rushing through today. So if you want to check it out, it'll be on Fox. While I'm on his show every Thursday. Anyway, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. There's the visual version on YouTube. We've got obviously on Red Coral as well. Join us in our private Facebook group called Off the Record, where we chat individually with you guys, talk about the biggest stories, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, answer your questions, all of that. So go to HollywoodRaw.com. We'll have a link to our private Facebook group right there if you are not able to find it. And then you can follow me at Dax Holt. You can follow Adam at Adam Glyn. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Guys, hope you liked that video. We got a lot more where that came from.
Hit that bell, like, subscribe, share with a friend. The best you do to support us is really doing that. And we really need the money because we need hair gel.